Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to dive into the incredibly intricate and honestly fascinating biological machinery that keeps you alive every single second of the day. We're talking about the journey of a single breath, moving all the way from the broad concepts of human physiology right down to the molecular magic happening inside your cells.
Right now, wherever you are, take a second to actually place your hands on your chest. Can you feel that rhythm, that moving up and down? What you're feeling is a literal masterpiece of biological engineering, and it has been working nonstop from the very moment you were born.
But before we zoom into the lungs themselves, we really should appreciate how we even know all of this. It comes from the anatomical discoveries championed by scientists like the Italian anatomist Alfonso Corti. He spent his life uncovering the hidden structures of animal bodies, starting with the cardiovascular systems of reptiles before turning his attention to the auditory system. It's pioneers exactly like him who paved the way for our modern understanding of how our bodies function.
And you know, our modern understanding relies heavily on a core concept called systems biology. Breathing isn't just one single isolated action. It's actually a perfect textbook example of systems biology, where regulatory networks of molecules, cells, tissues, and whole organs all interact together to create the emergent property we call respiration. It is the ultimate biological team effort.
To truly grasp this, we're going to take a macro to micro journey, following a single breath through 5 specific stages. 1. Your respiratory organs. 2. The mechanics of breathing. 3. Respiratory volumes and capacities. 4. The gas exchange zone. And 5. Transporting the gases.
All right, let's kick things off with section 1, your respiratory organs.
Imagine the literal pathway that air takes. It rushes in through your external nostrils, travels past the pharynx and the epiglottis, which, by the way, acts as this vital little flap protecting your larynx from food, down the trachea, and then branches through your primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi. It flows all the way into your lungs, which are protected by a double pleura, until it finally reaches these tiny, highly vascularized bags called alveoli.
We can essentially condense this vast biological operation into 5 elegant steps. It starts with pulling atmospheric air in, moving through diffusion and blood transport, and it ends with your cells actually utilizing that oxygen for catabolic reactions.
Moving right along to section 2. The mechanics of breathing. You don't need to memorize complex rules to understand how this works. You just need to understand the simple physics of pressure gradients. It is just nature's relentless drive to move from a high-pressure environment into a low-pressure environment. That's it. Your body acts as a literal pump to create those gradients. By contracting your diaphragm and your external intercostal rib muscles, you expand your chest cavity. This creates a negative pressure that just vacuums air right in during inspiration. Conversely, when you relax those muscles, it decreases the volume, creating a positive pressure to push the air back out during expiration. Think about this. A healthy human performs this precise mechanical flex 12 to 16 times every single minute. It's a highly measurable vital sign. In fact, clinical doctors can actively estimate the volume of air involved in these movements using a handy little device called a spirometer.
Which brings us to section 3, respiratory volumes and capacities.
So how much air are we actually moving here? Well, a normal quiet breath, your tidal volume is about 500 milliliters. But you actually have a massive reserve capacity for forcing air in and out. You can forcefully inspire an extra 2,500 to 3,000 milliliters, or forcefully expire about 1,000 to 1,100. And you even have a residual volume of about 1,100 to 1,200 milliliters of air that always stays in your lungs, just so they don't collapse.
The really crucial takeaway here is that by adding these specific volumes together, we can calculate your vital capacity. That is the absolute maximum amount of air you can move in a single forced breath. It's a major metric that doctors use for assessing pulmonary function.
Okay, let's zoom in even further for section 4, the gas exchange zone.
When you look at the partial pressure numbers, you see this stark concentration gradient that literally drives life itself. With oxygen at 104 in the alveoli, but only 40 in the deoxygenated blood, physics physically forces oxygen into your bloodstream. At the exact same time, carbon dioxide is pushed in the opposite direction, leaving the blood so it can be exhaled. But for this rapid exchange to happen, the gases have to pass through an incredibly thin, sub-millimeter diffusion membrane. It is beautifully constructed of 3 distinct microscopic layers: the squamous epithelium lining the alveoli,
the endothelium of the surrounding capillaries, and a tiny basement substance glued right in between. Perfectly favorable conditions all around.
Finally, we reach section 5, transporting the gases.
Now, here's a pretty surprising fact. While most oxygen rides directly on your red blood cells, carbon dioxide acts a bit differently. A massive 70% of your carbon dioxide waste is actually transported as bicarbonate. Only about 20 to 25% binds to the red blood cells, and a mere 7% just dissolves straight into the blood plasma. Meanwhile, oxygen binds heavily to the red-colored, iron-containing pigment called hemoglobin in your red blood cells. The dynamic nature of that bond is captured perfectly by the oxygen dissociation curve. It's this sigmoid curve that dictates exactly how oxygen is picked up in the oxygen-rich lungs and dropped off in the oxygen-starved tissues.
The real magic of this hemoglobin molecule is that it responds directly to its environment. When it encounters the specific, slightly acidic and warm conditions in your working tissues, along with high carbon dioxide and low oxygen, it actually forces the hemoglobin to let go of its oxygen right where your body needs it the most.
Because of this flawless, microscopic delivery system, every 100 milliliters of oxygenated blood successfully delivers about 5 milliliters of life-sustaining oxygen directly to your tissues under normal physiological conditions.
We've traveled all the way from the mechanical flexing of your chest wall down to the actual molecular binding of iron and oxygen. It leaves us to just marvel at the awe-inspiring systems biology operating effortlessly within us right now. So, knowing all this, how does it feel to realize that billions of microscopic gas exchanges are working in perfect emergent harmony inside you at this very moment? Thank you for exploring the breath of life with me in this explainer. Keep breathing, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.